What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/PettyRevenge. Force me to sit out half a week of swim camp? I make you jump in after me! So I'll preface this by saying I have swam from a young age. Is swam right here? Is swum a word? I sang, have sung. I swam, have swum, right? I don't know. I have swam? I have swimmed. There we go. I absolutely loved swimming as a child, so I absolutely cherished the hour of swim at Y Camp. So for those of you not in America, we have the Young Men's Christian Academy. That's what YMCA stands for. It's a fitness club that has childcare activities. I was never a well-off kid, at least at this age anyway, so every summer I went to the YMCA day camp when I was with my mom. Every week you had to recertify you are okay to swim. If you didn't, you got a red wristband and you had to use the kiddie pools. If you took it off, they had to recertify you. If you were good, you got a green wristband. Well, every week basically, I got the green one, and I would do what kids my age do. I would go down the water slide and hang out in the deep end. Then, one week, my mom put me in the special swim camp where that's mainly what you do. You still had to certify, but whatever. They got a new lifeguard, so I did my test the same as always. I would jump into the deep end, 15 feet, and pop up just before the wall on the other side. I swam underwater, but very distinctively not on the ground. No big deal. Until this lifeguard stated I never popped up for air, so I showed signs of drowning. Thus, I got a red wristband. The revenge. I ended up cutting the wristband off to force them to recertify me. Same lifeguard. I swam above the water the whole time. I got the green wristband. So, still steaming at this jackwagon, the next day I made sure to bring my diver's watch. My dad had given me it when I visited him, and my goggles. When I got there, he was supervising the deep end. So I went to the deep end, let all my air out, laid there with my goggles on, and waited for the dude to jump in. Maybe after 30 seconds, he jumps in. I spring into action. As soon as I heard him, I jumped up and got on the wall at the surface before he could do anything. So every about 10 minutes, I did this to the guy for 2 days straight. If he moved, I moved. I would jump in where it's no other guard's domain. Finally, I was asked to stop on Friday as they got the point. From that point on, I never had to recertify. They just knew who I was. Edit! So I was pretty much a kid that didn't think much about the repercussions of my actions here. It was mainly blind rage to completely make this dude's life hell for unnecessarily screwing with my week of swim camp. Was it a crappy thing for me to do? Yes. Was it revenge for this dude being a butthole? Oh yeah. I was a lifeguard later on. I get why what I did was bad, guys. You're literally faulting me for something I did when I was a preteen many years ago. I wouldn't do it now, and I sure won't let my kids do it in my presence either. I grew up and saw my actions were wrong, and this was petty. It was revenge, but it was petty. Hence the sub. Hey guy, can't really blame anyone for jumping on your ass because, like, as far as we knew from before the edits, you were 100% okay with your actions here and acted like they were 100% justified, which I feel like they weren't. The dude was just doing his job, making sure that everyone's safe. I don't think he was being a butthole, but I wasn't there. I'm literally reading one guy's take from it many years later. But my point is, the YMCA is really cool, and you should watch Karate Kid. I was gonna clarify and say the one from the 80s with Ralph Macchio, but honestly, the one with Jaden Smith is also really good, and Jackie Chan. You know, Jackie Chan's my grandpa. Yeah, I found out when he was doing the Google autocomplete interview. I think that's what it was. Yeah, check out the video. Alright, this story's called, "Oh, you don't want to move your cars? I'll tow it then!" Senior in college in the US here. I live in a townhouse development, 4 bedrooms per unit, with limited parking, only 2 spots per unit, plus a bunch of overflow parking for residents that's a bit of a walk. We got a good snow recently, so people have been getting pretty lazy about parking in resident spots since they didn't want to hike through the snow, which is understandable. They're your spots, do what you want. The issue is, my next door neighbors never drive their cars and yikes. Never drive their cars anywhere, still covered in snow several days out. And they have let their friends use my unit spots for a while. Not to mention the obnoxious parties they've thrown during the pandemic with 20 to 30 people. But that's a different matter. This has never been a huge deal. We ask them on occasion to move their cars, and they do, and it's been pretty chill. Since the snow, people have been very haphazard and lax about moving their cars for when friends come over, which means my roommates and I, who each have a car, so 4 cars for 2 spots, have at most had 1 spot open for us to park in. It's been a pain, and the next door neighbors have been way worse about leaving space for people and don't move their cars when we ask anymore. Today I was minding my own business and studying with the window cracked open, and one of their friends pulled into our parking spot, and one of said neighbors went out to say hi. Like I said, my window was open, and she proceeds to tell her friend that it's okay, they don't care, and they won't tell you in the next 20 minutes anyway. I'll call that a challenge. And with the local towing place being only a mile up the road, I know they can be here within 5. So my petty self called up the tow company and watched their friend's beaten down Prius get pulled away off to a tow lot, waiting for a sad, entitled soul to pay the $150 tow fee. Get crapped on, mother father. Next time you hear that neighbor spout nothing but a bunch of balagna, that's when you say, "Hey, shut the front door and step off, mother father." I said mother father twice. That's how cool it is. Alright, this story's called Do Not Hurt the Tomatoes. Once, many years ago, we innocently bought a house next door to a retired Marine couple. She was about 6'2" and strongly resembled Arnold, it's not a tumor. I assume they're talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger, I don't know. In his current state, and he was about 5'7" and probably weighed 130 pounds. They were very house yard proud and thoroughly obnoxious about it. After living next to them for a short time, for some unknown reason, no, really, they decided to mount a campaign of general obnoxiousness against us. It started small, a note on a friend's car that he was 3 inches over on their side when parked on the street in front of our house. Then it escalated rapidly. They reported us to animal control for farm animals inside the city limit. We had 2 Shih Tzu. They were not used to pull a plow. They reported us to the health department for leaving our pool with a small amount of water in it and breeding mosquitoes. It was hydrochloric acid being used to wash the pool and prep it for repair, as it was derelict when we moved in. They reported us for repairing our fence without a permit. Not moving it, not tearing it down or replacing it, we merely nailed some boards back up. They reported us for loud parties and quiet parties and no parties. They called City Hall on us so often it became a joke amongst those hallowed halls. All the while, they continued the small harassments as well. We ignored all of this, just making sure we had an extra plate for whatever official they called out that day. But then, they committed the ultimate crime. We were breakfasting on the patio one lovely morning when I happened to look over and see a sprayer nozzle come through the fence slats, and they sprayed poison on my tomato and jalapeno plants. Now, we love our salsa, and I make an absolutely exquisite fresh salsa, and they dared spray poison on my tomato and jalapeno plants. Poison my tomatoes and peppers, will you? In Texas, that's a killing offense. Sadly, we do not live in Texas, so I was forced to devise my own punishment. One thing about their house is that it must have been built on an anthill. They constantly fought ants. We regularly heard them complaining about ants as they tried to get rid of them from their backyard. Our homes were built on a golf course, and being considered patio homes, all had lovely large patios with huge kitchen windows with sliding glass opening onto a pass-through or serving counter. So I made a very, very large batch of simple syrup and froze it in ice cube trays. Friends and I would sit on our patio and toss ice cubes. We had a point system that ranged from getting the cubes on the patio to getting them up against the base of the sliding door to getting them onto the counter and up against the opening of the window. We gave them ants. Lots of ants. What about uncles. Not being particularly close neighbors, the Marines gave us no warning when they went on vacation. We did notice it got quieter, and I didn't overhear any further discussion between them about the sticky mess that regularly showed up on their patio, but I didn't really think about it. Besides, I was behind on points. So the bombardment continued. The ants celebrated. They sent out telegrams worldwide inviting all of their relatives to move. They had found paradise. The grass was green and there were regular supply drops. They invaded. There were tiny black ants, larger brown ants, and big red ants. Hosannas were sung. They built neighborhoods of McCansions. Ant rockets, I don't know, did the can across the counter. They held parades. There were Friday night fiestas with live ant mariachi bands. It was beautimous. I went through 3 5-pound bags of sugar. We knew exactly when the Marines got home from their 6-week cruise. We could tell by the screeches of anguish. Apparently, the ants had made their way inside. There were screams from the kitchen and the pantry and the laundry room and the bathroom. It was ear-shattering. Who knew a 5'7" male could even make those sounds? Battle was enjoyed. The army ants dug foxholes and built redoubts. The fire ants formed special forces teams and close protection units. The war raged for 3 months. Despite regular resupply, the ants were decimated. The Marines were seen collapsed in patio chairs, hollow-eyed with exhaustion. Their once pristine backyard closely resembling the aftermath of the Battle of Ypres. Peace talks were held. Détente was achieved. Calm reigned on Avenida Pancho Villa, until the Marines got their second breath and reinforcements in the form of their son, the Marine Jr. Further shenanigans ensued, and yours truly discovered that raccoons are not only exceedingly dexterous, they are inordinately fond of overripe figs. But that's another tale. One that I really want to read. This was a really good story. Top 10 best PettyRevenge stories I've read on this channel, or any other channel, which is just one, actually, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Anyway, I am very, impressed with the, everything, really. The writing, also the revenge itself. Alright, this story's called Fear the Mama Bear. I don't know whether this exactly counts as revenge, but even if it wasn't intentional, I certainly felt avenged. So, I was working at a hospital as a night shift ER registrar. The person behind the desk who checks you in when you come into the ER. Not a trained nurse, just an unskilled labor office worker. Because it was a night shift in a small hospital servicing a small town, I was the only person in charge of all admissions processes that happened during my shift. Ambulance transfers, emergencies, births, you name it, I did it. So, there I am, sitting in my booth in the ER when I get a call from the birthing unit. That's what I call my mom. A new mother came in, having gone into labor. Sure, no problem. That's my job. The only problem is that the doctor name I was given wasn't in our system. It turns out that our normal OB for new births had taken the night off, and the hospital had contracted a different doctor for that night, but never entered them into our system. Naturally, this had never happened before, and after a 30-minute phone call with a manager who didn't appreciate being woken up in the middle of the night, I had the unenviable task of explaining the problem to the birthing unit nurse, and there was literally nothing I could do because it was an IT issue. What ensued was a stream of wheedling and rage. Everything from, "Can you just enter the name under our normal doctor's name and we'll figure it out later?" "No, I can't. That's highly illegal." To, "Can you just put them into the system without a doctor?" Again, illegal. Also, the computer system literally wouldn't register a patient unless you put in a doctor name, probably because illegal. Eventually graduating to, I don't know, just get her registered somehow. These are just a few of the more ridiculous highlights from a very long conversation. He really wasn't getting it. Now, I have a lot of sympathy for the position he was in. Hospital staff can't legally administer care if the patient isn't registered in the system. So this poor woman was probably sitting in their waiting room enduring labor this entire time. Still, I knew what the rules were, and he was making a bad situation worse. After about 15 minutes of trying to explain the situation to him, I gave him a final speech reminding him of the situation, apologized that there was nothing I could do, and hung up. I then performed the time-honored tradition of leaning back in my office chair and emitting a long, tension-fueled sigh. Enter my coworker, 120 pounds of gossip and pure mama bear energy. She heard my sigh, probably the conversation too. The nurse station was 5 feet from my desk and asked what was going on. I explained it all to her. She nodded, said some sympathetic words, and then she disappeared. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I assumed she had her own work to do. Some amount of time later, she returns with the birthing unit nurse in tow. I think if she could have, she would have been dragging him by his ear. I don't know what she said or did, but this 250-pound, 6-foot-plus dude is literally in tears, apologizing profusely to me. Meanwhile, I'm so stunned that all I can do is stand there saying, sure, apology accepted, until he eventually leaves. Mama Bear looks satisfied with the exchange. I thank her and we return to our posts. From that moment on, every interaction I had with that guy was incredibly friendly and respectful. For context, prior to this, he usually had either the apathetic employee voice or the condescending, I'm a nurse so I need you to do this because I'm important tone. What did she do? What? I'm confused, but badass. Mama Bear, cool. Alright, this story's called All This Fighting Over Something So Small. Oh, is this a story about two women fighting over a guy who's cheating on both of them? I was watching Lord of the Rings last night and remembered this. My family has been fighting like vultures over who has my grandmother's ring for the past 6 months. She died last year and all of her children, 60 plus, think one of them took it while she was sick. One aunt says it was promised to her and her daughter, but there is no mention in the will, and she thinks my uncle took it because he was around my grandmother the most. I'm treated like the black sheep of the family, where I don't really get invited to weddings or family events in general. I try to put my best foot forward, but usually end up feeling I'm being taken advantage of. Last time I got invited to be involved, it was because I had money. I also inherited my grandmother's house, and they left it trashed and ransacked after her funeral, including locking her senior cat in a bedroom with no food or water. I luckily ran by the next day, so he's still alive. Oh god. When I furiously asked who locked up the cat and why, the answer I got was basically, oh, I don't know, that's bad. So if you find the ring, can you mail it to me? What none of them know is my grandmother gave me the ring before she started getting sick and didn't tell anyone because she thought it would start a fight. Edit. Thank you all for the awards. Wow! Okay, so a few more details. All of the family live really far away and they're pretty old. I don't think they could break in if they tried, and I keep the ring in a safe, very hidden location. First of all, OP, good on you for being a badass and a cool person, alright? Very, very hard things to be, especially at the same time. As someone who's both in many other things, I can tell you that. I can vouch for the struggle. For instance, gas station across the street, there's an employee there, the cashier. He looks just like Kratos from God of War. I call him Kratos because he looks like Kratos. Like exactly like him, just not as buff. I don't know how that's relevant, but anyway, my point is OP, stay badass and awesome. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.